It would seem as though.
I pushed the record button.
Oh, good. It's recording?
Yeah, it is recording. So we're off on
sure?
a much better start than we were even last
Double
week.
check.
Well, because I'm looking, the time is moving. It's changing.
Oh my
so that
God.
means
Time?
it's recording.
Wait.
Time is changing.
Girl, time is changing.
I know it's too deep. The time.
I can't. I gotta go home.
The times they are a-changing.
Yeah, honestly. They're changing.
And so here we are back for another week of the podcast. It would seem as though the podcast where we talk about anything, everything, and nothing.
Mostly nothing.
I'm Vesta.
I'm Annika. I'm exhausted mostly.
Oh, girl.
I know.
As I mentioned earlier, I'm already tired for tomorrow.
Girl.
I was watching this movie, this really cute movie called Lost City.
Okay.
With Sandra Bullock.
And
Channing Tatum. I was like...
Tatum Channing.
Yeah, Tatum O'Neill. I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyway, and Harry Potter. And the woman who plays Sandra Bullock's... What is she? Not her producer. She's like her... Whatever. Sandra Bullock's an author.
Okay.
And this woman is maybe her manager? I don't know what she is. But she's talking to someone and she says... I have been trying for the last year and a half to take a nap.
Yeah.
And I'm all, bitch, that is how I feel. I was like, I just want to lay down somewhere.
Yep.
And I want to be left completely the fuck alone.
Yes.
But being left the fuck alone is a miracle around here because, I have children and, my mother.
Yeah.
And ain't nobody leaving me alone.
No. 3 children, 3 dogs, 2 children, and a partridge in a fucking pear tree.
Right.
Crotchety old woman.
Right. But good times.
Yeah. What a party.
Yeah.
Tubular, dude. Tubular.
How was your week?
Fine. It was fine. It's just been a long week. It was Mother's Day weekend.
Yes, it was.
I work at a location in the mall, so it was poppin'. And I'm just worn out. If people, you know what, I'm gonna say something. If people have complaint when they go to a restaurant or like a fast food establishment or a Starbucks or a cafe, and they want to complain about speed of service or your barista wasn't like, oh my god, how are you? Oh my god, tell me all about y'all. Go work there, bitch. Go fucking work there. Because I don't have time to care about you, let alone get to know you. You know what I mean?
No.
Did you get what you ordered? Great. Back the fuck up. Like, there's other people here. But it's a lot. Like, my job isn't hard necessarily. And we've had that conversation because you're like, well, I think it's hard. And there are portions of it that are, but it's when you have to do all the things at the same time and you have to go at top speed, and being one part of the management team, like, that's my job.
Right.
And so Friday through Monday every week, and now that it's summer and it's the mall, girl, or it's not summer yet, but almost summer.
It's 90 degrees. It's summer.
Girl, it is crazy. So I got home yesterday and I was sweaty. And like, for those of you who don't know me, I don't really sweat, but I was like genuinely sweaty. And then, hung out with your children and...
But were you preacher-chuck and sweaty?
I was both of them. You know what I mean? I was a little dumb, so I was preacher-chuck.
Sure.
And I was very...
I think he was a lot dumb.
He was what?
A lot dumb.
A lot dumb. But I was just preacher-chuck Jr., so I was just a little dumb.
Have we ever told that story on
I don't know, but you should, because it's my favorite. I often say...
Just to catch up, in case we haven't, when I was in high school, my best Judy in high school... was telling me one day that she had a pen pal. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh, that's cool. Because back when people actually wrote letters.
Sure.
I mean, it was, many, many years pre-internet. And I was like, oh, a pen pal, that sounds nice. Yeah, and it was a boy. And I was like, oh
my God, slut.
Oh, yeah.
You're a slut.
Well, then she let me read one of his letters. And he was in prison.
Love.
So already it's like,
into it.
Great. And he was apparently a man of God.
Oh, same.
Because he became a minister in prison. But he also was dumb.
Like you.
Right.
Seems like they go hand in hand.
Called himself Preacher Chuck, but he didn't know how to spell. So it was Preacher Chuck. And so when he would sign his letters, he'd be like, or we'd write his letters, be instead of dear Sweaty.
So Preacher Chuck and Sweaty.
Preacher Chuck. And so from that point forward, I was all, oh, how's Preacher Chuck? Sweaty.
Preacher Chuck and Sweaty.
Preacher Chuck and Sweaty.
Yep.
And so, I mean, hello, that was more than 40 years ago. And still it makes me laugh.
Oh, it's one of my favorite stories. And I call people Sweaty a lot. Just when
Hey, Sweaty.
in moments when you should say Sweetie. Like, you're doing amazing, Sweaty. Or, aw, Sweaty. You okay?
Oh my God, Sweaty, I love you.
Yep,
Yeah.
mostly.
Yeah.
But yeah, so my week was fine. I'm just very tired. School started again, so I'm just taking one class, and it's very boring. Nothing exciting to talk about. It's social statistics, so we're not going to talk about my math class here.
No?
No, but yeah, just, it's hot.
No.
It's busy. I have lots to do. On Friday, we have big plans.
Oh, yeah, we're going to go to a... it's like Cirque du Soleil, but it's not. It's Cirque Italia.
Yeah.
And what's it called again?
Something about paranormal. It's spooky.
I think it's just called Paranormal.
Maybe that's what it's called. Paranorman.
Paranormal. I love that movie.
Me too.
It was such a sweet movie.
I know.
And I love that his grandma was played by Elaine Stritch.
Who doesn't love her?
Right, we're going to go to the circus.
Circus?
It's the only kind of circus I would go to because there's no animals.
Agreed. There's no abuse.
And I hope there's no clowns.
Well, there probably are. It's paranormal and scary.
I hate
It's probably a
clowns.
saboopy. It's so funny because when Papa Man, when your husband asked me, do you think your mom would like this? And I said, well, it's like a acrobat Cirque du Soleil kind of nonsense, but it's scary, girl. I don't know. She might be too scared. She will have to bring her blankie and her bottle just in case.
As long as my bottle is full of booze,
Right.
I'll get all drunk up.
Okay, and
Well, it's funny because did you hear Grace say that?
oh yeah, Gavin and I joked about that last night. Now, don't drink any beer or any wine. To the four of us who don't drink alcohol, you don't drink.
So there's not a big risk of us. I'm going to go to the circus and get drunk.
And like, what, little girl, what is wrong with you?
Right.
She's so funny.
Yeah, most likely what I would drink too much of is caffeine-free Diet Coke.
Well, let me tell you something. So that same night, because we had family dinner.
Yeah.
No, it wasn't.
Yeah,
it wasn't.
Mother's Day.
It was Mother's Day dinner, and she just pops off about Grandma saying, "I am sick and tired of Grandma mocking me and copying me," and I was like, "What the fuck is happening?" Like, at what point is Grandma like, I'm gonna copy this little bitch right here? Like, not ever, not once.
I don't know.
But, and Grace gets, for everyone who doesn't know, when Grace gets something in her mind, it is like, that's all she'll fucking talk
Right,
about. And
right.
then she like obsesses about it.
She does. She perseverates.
So she's
She
over there
won't let it go.
doing dishes. And if she does it again, I'm gonna fight her or whatever. I'm just like, Jesus Christ.
Calm down.
I know. She's
Just
so
calm down.
funny
And
to
this
me.
morning, her thing that she was perseverating on was the ghost in her bedroom. Because a few weeks back, she woke up and was like, there was a ghost in my bedroom. And I was like, was there?
Ooh.
And he said, hey, talk to me. And I was like, okay. And I was like, I'm pretty sure you probably just dreamed that. But
Yeah.
it's okay.
Or
No,
brother-
I did not dream. I was awake. I heard the whole thing. But then we had to hear it 400 or 500 times.
years,
Yeah. And it was like, it's a ghost. What are we going to do? Call Ghostbusters?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Call the father.
Burn some sage in your... I don't know. I don't know. So this morning, she comes down and she goes, that ghost was back in my room because it said boo to me. A ghost said boo? It's a little on the nose.
I mean, right. It's too like
Boo.
Disney for me,
Ooh.
Ooh, see, boo. Was it in a white sheet too? Was it just your brother? Like, that's so funny to me. She's like,
I
the
think
ghost.
more likely it would be brother just trying to scare her and go, boo.
Yeah.
Well, what's funny is whenever she tries to scare me, she'll come up behind me and say boo.
Yeah.
I'm like,
Ah!
I'm so scared.
I know.
Gosh, yikes, what am I going to do?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I know.
No.
She's silly.
she is silly. But she had to tell me at least 10 times before breakfast. And I was like, I get it.
Well, and then like,
What are we going to do about it?
I don't.
I'm calling the police right now. Hello, police.
Oh, please, can you come get this
Picked up
ghost?
my coffee. Hello, police.
Right. Beep boop 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 boop. Police.
Dialed on the remote control. Hello,
Hello.
police?
I know.
Yeah.
I know. Funny. Your children are funny.
My children are funny. They're crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I know. Oh, I know.
So, and then I know I told you. So next week, Annika and I and my friend Alicia are going to the beach.
Whoop, 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 whoop.
And we're going to do our pod from the beach. Not on the beach, because it'd be so windy, you'd be like...
Yeah.
You'd never hear anything.
And who wants to go sit
And then
on
we'd
the
probably be
beach?
attacked by seagulls.
Yeah, and it's sandy.
And
And, I love the beach, but I don't want to go sit
No.
on it.
No, because then you find sand in places you never wanted sand to be.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe long enough to find a pearl, but I don't want that either, so...
Ew. Ew. Oh, my God. Ew.
I know. I said, I may end up never even putting my feet on the sand, and my husband's like, yeah, I know you, so I'm not surprised.
Yeah. Shocking.
But, so we're going to do that, and Grace says this morning, can I please go with you? And I was like, no.
No.
Only because you're in school, darn it.
Wish I could take you.
Yeah, I need a break.
Ugh.
I fucking need a break. I need to get away from anyone, everyone, and all the things, and go be at the beach.
And since I'm nobody, I don't count.
Right? Absolutely. Yeah, I don't ever feel the need to get away from you.
Agreed. Same. Nope. I told you earlier, there are 3 people in this world, roughly 3 people, that I'm like, I could be around them all day, and I wouldn't be bothered. But most everyone else, the other billions of people, fuck off. Yeah. I have nothing to say to you.
Yeah. But as you mentioned, Sunday was Mother's Day. I had a lovely day doing fuck all. I did nothing. My husband made me breakfast, which was lovely. And then I watched a whole lot of the series Happily Divorced with Fran Drescher.
Right.
That was lovely. And then... my son made me lunch.
Love it.
Anyway, he made me a grilled cheese sandwich. It was delightful.
Love him. Perfect.
And then we watched the movie Lost City, as I mentioned, because I've already seen it, but I thought it'd be fun to watch as a family.
Is it
It's such
cute?
a fun one.
You like
fun, it? It's a fun money.
Okay.
It's a fun movie.
Well,
words are hard.
We're gonna take naps after this, honey.
Thank God. It's just a super fun movie.
Okay, I'll just go home and watch it.
Yeah.
Oh, that's what I'll do today.
And Daniel Radcliffe plays a bad guy.
Well, he's British, so he has the face for it. You know what I mean?
So just because you're British, you're like, bad guy.
I'm saying.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, in how many movies do they make, the one person of color the bad guy? So yeah, you look British. You're a bad guy.
I'm not sure how one looks British, but...
Oh, don't you, though? Can't you sometimes just look at someone and be like,
British.
You're British?
Well... it does go into the game that I used to play with my friend.
I
Gay
love this game.
or foreign?
Honestly, and sometimes
what if you're both?
Then you win the gay
Right.
foreign
And
lottery.
you get prizes and stuff.
Well, so I watch a lot of shows that have predominantly British cast in it. So Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
Right? Or I'm currently watching Doctor Who, obviously the renewal of it since 2004 or whatever. And I'm on season 3. But most of those people, I'm like, oh yeah, you look British. Obviously, there are people who don't look British, but they just, I don't know, amorphous, misshapen, broken, maybe.
With bad teeth.
Look at the royal family. You know what I mean?
They definitely look British.
You looking at them, and even the queen, she didn't just look like a little old white lady. She looked like a little old British white lady. And I can't explain it to you. I don't know. But there's just something that you're all, oh.
But I'm going to say, in his old age, Steven Tyler now looks like an old British lady.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And as does Sir Paul McCartney.
Well, and I do think that, there are people who are not British who also look British, but they're probably really close in descendant. You know what I mean? Their grandma was probably British. I'm just saying. Don't try and make it make sense. It's just, you can just tell.
Okay. Mm-hmm. It makes me think of when I worked at my old salon and I worked with our Liz. You remember crazy old our Liz?
Yep.
And her client was like, oh yeah, I'm from Canada. Well, I thought you looked Canadian.
I want you to know I love saying that. You look Canadian.
You look Canadian. How does what? Never mind.
She had a maple leaf tattooed on her forehead.
That was probably it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my god. I've got to stop watching. I've been watching...
You're not even watching the Kardashians. You're just watching
I watched the girl who mocks the Kardashians because she's hilarious.
Yeah.
And she does everything in the same, monotone...
that they do.
Vocal fry. Kind of yeah, Courtney, you're so wild right now. It's just I love that, they never even raise their voice. And it's you're being wild. You're being so disrespectful.
It's so stupid.
And when she does Chloe, Chloe just repeats everything. It's like, not disrespectful.
Yeah, right?
Whatever. It's just funny. Anyway. Anyway. We've talked a lot this season, this year, about that this has been a rough year for drag queens. Mm-hmm. Especially legendary, iconic drag queens, because so many of them have died. I mean, it's also just a rough year for drag queens because of all the idiots in Congress who are trying to pass laws saying that drag should be illegal or whatever. It's like drag should be considered adult entertainment. And certainly the shows at the bar where they're doing raunchy songs, absolutely. Yeah. But the stuff where you're doing shows for all age kind of things or reading at a library, it's like, calm the fuck down. Ain't nothing happening.
It ain't no thing.
But we lost another queen who's not internationally famous, but a lot of people around, at least the United States, know her. Her name was Jack E. From Reno, Nevada. And she was Empress, I want to say 4 or 5 times. But she also, I don't understand. Once was enough for me.
Sorry, sidebar, because I know of the whole court system, but you can be Empress more than once?
You can. Now in Portland, you have to wait, I think, unless they've changed it, you had to wait 7 years to do it a second time. And I know she was Empress 5, 10, 15 of Reno, and then I think she did it another time that didn't fit in with the 5-year plan.
Has there been anyone in Portland who's been Empress twice?
No. There's been somebody who's been Emperor and then Empress.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Victoria.
But she was Sister Empress to Portland, emceed the ball every year when we had coronation. And 2 years ago, I'm going to tell this from my point of view. We were getting ready to leave the ball, and I ran into her husband, who was just a darling man. His name was Larry Mastro Piero. And he also had the coolest last name, Mastro Piero.
Yeah, what
kind of cool last name is that? But I saw Larry, and I was like, oh, hi, blah, blah, blah. And he gave me hugs and kisses, and I said, so good to see you. And a couple days later died. And I was like, what the fuck? I just saw him. I just hugged and kissed him. I hope I didn't kill him.
Great.
And
2 years ago, you did
it was 2 years ago. And then I just saw this week that Jackie had passed. Mm-hmm. And I know she's been in shaky health for a while, but I just wanted to send out, some
good vibrations.
Good vibrations.
Good libations.
Some good libations. So that everybody can get drunk and whatever. Yeah, again, I'm already tired tomorrow. So, words sometimes are hard. Words are hard.
Well, and I'm also very tired. So you're just
oh my god! Earlier we were sitting in my car, and my husband sent me this thing. It was 50 pictures that'll make you laugh out loud. And usually when people send me things are supposed to make you laugh out loud, I barely even smile.
Yeah.
These made me freaking laugh out loud. I mean,
you were crying
because it was pictures of things where people had misspelled things mostly,
hand
soap.
the
picture of the smork alarm,
or
the hand soup,
I love it.
I was and all of them were making me laugh so hard that I was crying, and I was like, it reminded me of when I watched the movie Bridesmaids, and I had to pause the movie in the middle and say to my husband, is this movie really this funny, or is it because I am just completely delusional because I'm so tired?
Right.
And he's like, it really is this funny.
I know.
Because it was the scene in the wedding dress shop.
Oh my god, that whole thing.
I'm sorry, but when she stops and shits in the middle of the street, she's like, oh no, she's doing it.
Okay, well, Melissa McCarthy is sitting on the sink and she's all, it's coming out of me like lava. And then she
don't look at me.
Don't look at me. It is so stupid. I love it so much.
Ordinarily, that kind of humor is not my cup of tea, but I was laughing so hard I thought I was going to die.
Well, and the fact that they all just got food poisoning, and we saw all of it happen, it wasn't just poop jokes for the sake of poop jokes. Right. I love it.
They're all sweating. Yeah. It was good times. It was good times. So, this week, we decided we're going to talk about books.
Yeah. Where my brain is completely in order.
Turns out, we're bitches who read.
Sometimes
I was surprised to hear you say this morning that your new read is the Bible.
Okay, way to call me out. Well, listen, you know that I love mythology, I love folklore, I love in general lore.
But that's
legend.
not even interesting folklore.
It isn't. You're right. It is boring. But I read a lot of different religious texts, you know, and I liked reading because I read like the Book of Enoch, which is not in the Bible because it's Apocrypha. So I read like those little books, right, of Apocrypha. I read different like things from like Hindu and Buddhist and like all of like religious texts. I haven't read like the Quran or anything, which I want to. I'm getting there. But for like Judeo-Christian, Abrahamic kind of religions, I haven't really read a lot because I don't care. And mostly Christian, right? I don't care. But so I decided I'm going to read it. Well, there was no other book that I really wanted to check out. All my holds are, I have to wait like weeks. So, and they have like unlimited copies at the library. So I checked it on the little library app and I'm just like zipping right through it. But girl, it is so ungodly boring. Like, and I don't know how people...
Ungodly.
And I don't know... Couple things. I don't know how people read it and believe this to be like accurate.
Like a history book.
Yeah. Oh my god, this history is beautiful. It's boring and stupid, and it's a family tree of mostly incest. So it's not that interesting.
That's I think the part, and as I mentioned to you earlier, that's the part that even as a child puzzled me, and I tried to talk to people in the church about it. Like when they'd be like, "Here's the thing, here's the lesson, here's the whatever." And you have to believe all of it or none of it is how they would talk about the Bible. You can't cherry pick the things that you like, although tell that to religious people now.
Now it's different.
It was like you have to believe all the texts. Well, so I'm supposed to believe that everyone is descendant of this one couple, and so generation 3, they're just all fucking their cousins. When Cain and Abel had to fuck their sisters.
Yeah.
I mean... to
Weird.
keep creating, or their mother,
right?
I'm not sure.
Honestly,
I mean, really,
really.
And who was it that you said? Was it Lot?
Lot.
Lot's daughters had sex with Lot,
and they made it their ploy, right? They're like, his seed is gone because mom turned into a pillar of salt or whatever. So let's get him drunk, and then I'll fuck him tonight, and then tomorrow we'll get him drunk, and then you'll fuck him. Like that was literally their plan, and they executed their plan. And I was like, wait a minute. Wait a minute.
Just wait a goddamn minute.
I know, and the portrayal of women in the Bible is just so good. It's so accurate and beautiful and kind. But I mentioned this, and I thought this was interesting, was that, you know, the stories that people, you know, the Tower of Babel, or the story of Sodom and Gomorrah, which involves Lot, but those aren't, there's not a ton of meat to them, right? There are a few lines, maybe a paragraph, in the entirety of the Bible, and these are stories that people are like,
yeah, they're the ones that people really hang on to.
Yeah.
If it was written in a story form, that would probably be interesting. Even if it's, I mean, even for the fiction that it is, I think it would be an interesting tale.
Oh, yeah.
Because the whole idea of the story of Sodom and Gomorrah is that it was such a wicked...
heathenistic.
And it isn't a town, it was 2 towns.
Yeah.
Where, you know, God was feeling all left out because these people didn't care about him anymore. And so he was like, we're going to need to destroy these 2 cities. You go into these cities, you find if there's anybody there who still believes in me. If there are, take them out. And then we're going to burn the place down. And it's like...
So you sent 2 sexy angels down from heaven, and they entered the town, and Lot was nice to them. And Lot took them in his home. But all the townspeople surrounded Lot's house and said... No, give me those sexy angels. I want to fuck them. Like, literally everyone in the town just wanted to run a train on the angels, and I said, neat.
I wish it was written like
Girl,
that in
me
the
too.
Bible.
And do you want to know something that's... There's an even more fucked up part. Not that everyone was so horny, because whatever. But Lot said, Nor, you can't have these 2 sexy angels in my house, but these 2 daughters of mine, they're virgins. Do what you want with them. And, like, threw them to the mob.
But leave the angels alone.
But the mom said... We don't want your virgin daughters. We want the sexy angels. And so, you know, whatever. But
think about it. If you're going to have sex, right? And you have the choice between just some boring old virgin girls or magical creatures.
Listen, you know me, bitch. I'm
always going with the magical creatures.
I'm always going with the monster or the magical creature. That is my kink.
Plus, if they have wings, you know, they could fly you off someplace when you're done. It's like, they're burning this place down later. Could you just fly me to the next, you know?
Well, and like, I just don't understand. I told Gavin, I'm reading the Bible, and I'm like most of the way through Genesis, and I have questions. And he said, okay, well, who doesn't? But, like, I don't understand why Lot's wife turned into a pillar of salt just because God said don't look back. But, like, why couldn't... What was the purpose? You know what I mean? I just don't... There's so many things, and I'm like, what is... Just because God said don't, and you're like, well, I didn't do it then. Like, it's just so silly. And I want you... People who've read the Bible, and that's, like, the only religious or, like, mythological text you've read, I encourage you to go read others, because then you'll see the Bible is literally chock full of nothing but boring.
Well, it's also so much stuff that's stolen from other religions.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Most of it.
And it's like, could you come up with some original shit?
Well, but I mean, they even talk about, like, Babylon in the book, and they talk about, Sumeria and shit. Those were actual places with their own belief systems that weren't Christian.
Right.
But yeah, anyway, the Bible, that's what I'm currently reading. It's because, again, my books weren't ready, so I was like, let's read this boring-ass, depressing book.
I, on the other hand, am currently reading a book called The Sweetness at the Bottom of the Pie, which,
Okay.
It was recommended to me, and so I was like, okay,
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
And when it was first recommended, I went to check it out, and they're like, good luck. We have, 3 copies and 400 people in line to read it, and I was like, dang. And then I kind of forgot about it because it was like, well, that's going to be forever. I mean, I put my hold on it. And then the other day, it was like, your copy is finally... Oh, Jesus, all right. And so I checked it out. And it's an audiobook, so it's actually being read to me by this lovely young British lady who looks very...
She looks like a British man.
It's... Starts out and it's being narrated by this 11-year-old girl who's a genius, who is a scientist and has taught herself how to do science and how to do all these chemical things in her lab.
Yeah.
But it starts with her poisoning her sister because her sister pissed her off.
I get it.
And so for revenge, so the book starts out literally, you think this poor little girl has been kidnapped because she's talking about being gagged and blindfolded in a closet. And she gets herself untied, gets loose, and then you learn that it was her sisters who did it to her.
Wow.
And so for revenge, she took her one sister's string of pearls and then put them in this chemical tree. And so basically melted her pearls down to nothing.
Oh my God, yeah.
And then she poisoned her lipstick and whatever. So anyway, it's very interesting, but it's also funny. And so it's so far, I'm like 5 chapters in, and I'm really enjoying it. But that's my current read.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
And I know this is also on your list at the very top, but Percy Jackson.
Well, I know you said you've read the whole first and second series.
Right.
I've only read the first series.
So I just finished finally the second series, and let me tell you, I could reread both those series multiple times. 1, because it's about mythology, but 2, I think Rick Riordan, the author, is so fucking smart. Because I think he's done his research and he writes it in a way that is so comprehensible. And tying these stories or these myths or these ideas into the modern contemporary day with teenagers. It is easy to read. It is fun. And I'm never like, oh, this part's so boring. Never.
No.
And one thing I do love, and I was telling Gavin this, is that a lot of the times he will take the myth that he's writing about and alter it, right? So, instead of, now I have to think of something. I can't think of one, but he'll use the main characters and not the gods or whatever.
Yeah.
But it's just so good. So I finished the second series. I waited months to get this the last book of the second series, but it's because the new show is coming out with Percy Jackson.
Yes, I can't wait.
So everyone's read Percy Jackson. And it is obviously technically young adult, but I think a lot of times young adult books are better than adult fantasy or fiction. They're kind of boring.
And oftentimes I have found reading young adult that it is told in such a way that it's really to keep you engaged.
Yeah.
And so they're not boring.
No.
You don't have those long dry patches where you're like, okay.
Please describe the feast to me for a chapter and a half.
Yawn, sleep.
Yeah, so they're so good. And so then I started the third series of this same universe, which has to do with Egyptian mythology now. And it follows Cain, Carter and Sadie Cain and their descendants of pharaohs and God touched or whatever. But it is different because, in Percy Jackson, those kids are the descendants of gods. Their gods are parents or they're a legacy. And that's not
so
how it
they're
is.
demigods.
Yes, and that in the Kane Chronicles, that's not how it is. They are the gods are not to be trusted in the same kind of way. You know what I mean? And so they don't have.
Well, that is one of the
children.
things I found interesting about the whole first series is the gods are assholes.
Oh yeah.
You know, and it's like, well, I just saved you. Well, then I guess I won't kill you. What? I just saved you and your entire kingdom, and that you're like, meh.
Well,
yeah. I guess I'll let you live.
Well.
What?
But that's one thing that I love so much about mythology, and specifically like Greek and Roman mythology, is that the gods, more specific Greek mythology, are like fallible. They're humanistic. You know what I mean? It isn't like almighty, all seeing, all loving, all everything.
No.
God. They have their weaknesses, they have their opportunities, they have like their strengths and whatever.
The men are all kind of whores.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. Absolutely, definitely. But yeah, it's, that's one thing I love about it, is it doesn't make them such, you know, people worship them, people offer, people praise them, whatever. But it's not the same as, like, the monotheistic, one true God bullshit. And I prefer that. I prefer the gods to be good and bad, because that goes back to, like, oh, this is a good person and that one's a bad guy. Like, that shit's all subjective, right? Like, and I always use the example, and people are like, you shouldn't use that. But, like, let's talk about Hitler for a second. There are people who don't think Hitler was the bad guy, right? There are people who don't think that.
Yeah.
So their subjective truth is that Hitler was the good guy. In the rest of the world, objectively, we see him as, like, the villain.
Sure.
But there's never going to be 100% totality of a population that sees the same way you do. It's not going to happen. And so I like seeing that characters are good and bad, because it just shows, you know, that spectrum that people live in. Like, and it's why it's really hard to be like, that person's a bad person, that person's a good person.
Well, and I think that's why, because, you know, I always joke about how between the Old Testament and the New Testament, God, you know, changed his attitude and decided to become a loving God.
He went to therapy.
Which is so ridiculous. But I really think what it is in the Old Testament, he was much more like the gods of other religions, where he was fallible and he was vain and jealous and angry.
Yeah.
And then in the New Testament, they're like, okay, let's make this more palatable to these people who are trying to peddle this religion across the world. So he's now this loving, all-knowing, omnipotent, whatever. It's like, no. The other God, I think, is easier actually to relate to. The one who was like, oh, y'all stop worshiping me? Fuck you.
Yeah, die now.
I'm going to
flood the earth.
I'm going to flood the earth because you're all a bunch of assholes. You know, it's like, that makes more sense to me, because look at all the shit that keeps happening to the world. And that would make sense if Christians still believe that that's the God that they have.
Right.
You know, it's like, because he still keeps, you know, doing the kind of shit that he's been doing all along. Not this, you know, all kumbaya love and whatever, because that doesn't make sense to me.
That's the thing too, is like Christianity, especially like the Old Testament, the head gods, like the main gods of most cultures of that area, like the Middle East, Mediterranean, were storm gods, right? So like Enlil from like Sumeria, Zeus, Jupiter, whatever. All of these were like storm gods, which, you know, you don't equate a storm with something that's like happy and kind and love and free, but it can destroy everything. It can destroy your crops. It can destroy your life, because again, people didn't have like mass produced anything. Like, if it destroyed your livestock, your town, and your crops, and you were destitute.
Yeah, you were done.
Yeah. So they took all of these storm gods and just all combined them into one and said, you're the God of the Old Testament. And that's essentially what happened.
Yeah.
But I mean, no, God's real. And he only created Adam and Eve. And then they populated a whole earth. And also, let's talk about that for a second. Adam's dumb as fuck. Let me tell you what. His wife walks up and says, you want some fruit? And he doesn't ask, where'd you get that fruit? He just like, yeah, and eats it.
Yeah,
like, there's no conversation. And then he was like, she did it. She made me eat it. No one made you do anything, bitch. She asked if you wanted some fruit, and you ate the fruit.
Yeah, but it's only the first example of why women are bad.
I know, but it's like,
you know,
the
like
original
the whole
sin.
Thing of Mary Magdalene is a whore. It's like, no.
Well, and even if
you
she
know,
was,
and they had to. Well, and that's the other thing, is they made Mary Magdalene a whore because they had to change the history, because Mary Magdalene in some historical things, is believed to have actually been married to Jesus.
Yes.
And to have had children with
Well,
Jesus.
and that's another thing. Jesus allegedly had
there's
children.
also the Book of Mary.
Oh, yeah.
Which they found years later. And because they were like, well, let's leave that out of the Bible. And we're going to demonize her. And I was like, no.
Which is weird to me. Like, why her? But they don't have her and like the...
But how many women in the Bible are
True.
demonized?
But just the people that they portray as the villains, like Judas, his book is also not in the Bible. It's Apocrypha. So they just were like, all of these things that are going to prove us wrong, remove it. Burn it.
What's interesting to me is the Bible, of course, is all supposed to be based on the history of what happened. Then you have stories like Samson and Delilah. And of course, Delilah, villain.
Yeah.
Samson was magic.
Yeah.
It was his hair that gave him strength.
Yeah.
What kind of magical, mythological nonsense is that? His hair gave him strength. She cut off his hair. He lost all his strength.
That's not how bodies work. And also, that's not how bodies work.
Wait, what?
Just in case you
were
were wondering.
Your hair and all of a sudden you're just weak as a little lamb. Oh my god, I got a haircut today. I gotta go lay down. I'm exhausted.
I know. I love that.
Yeah, it's just dumb.
It's
agree. Dumb. But I know that you and I have both read the books of Madeline Miller, which
good.
also, mythology, Circe,
yeah,
and the Song of Achilles. Circe I loved.
Killed me.
I loved them both though, for
my
different
God.
reasons.
Yep.
But it's also, I love mythology. I started doing mythology stuff in high school because one of the classes offered. I took literally every language arts class they offered in high school.
Yeah.
Because I loved it so much. And one of them was mythology. And when I started reading mythology, I was like, oh my god, I love this so much.
Yeah.
And so when I found this book to read, Circe, I was like, oh cool, it's, mythology. And oh my god, it's so well written.
So beautiful.
And both of her books. Song of Achilles is such an interesting love story. But it's like, the whole... It just can't be easy.
No.
There has to be some big roadblocks in the way, and it's a love story between two men. And it is beautiful.
It is so beautiful, and the story is so well written. Oh god, these books both killed me dead. They were both so good. But these are two books I recommend to everybody as well. Read Circe, read Song of Achilles.
One of the things I love about Circe is in just standard mythology. She's a witch, and she's painted as a pretty bad character. But in the book, it's like it kind of gives you that. Well, here's why.
Yeah,
she was banished to live on this island by herself, and these men would just show up on her island and be like, "Oh, a woman, let's rape her."
Yeah,
and so she turned them into pigs.
Yep.
Whatever. It's like.
So, the only thing on the island with Circe were animals and, nymphs. Sea nymphs and little, whatever, tree.
And her son.
Well, after the fact, right? Because, you want to know... So, if you read the Odyssey, which is the book of Odysseus going home after the Trojan War, and he ends up on her island, right? And stays. She turns all of his men into animals, but Athena's, his protector, gives him a little potion, so he can't be turned into an animal, blah, 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 blah. So it goes from that to them then, being together and having children. More than just one, though, in the Odyssey. And then he's like, I gotta go. And so he leaves, like any good father does, and goes back to his wife, Penelope, and their son, Telemachus, right? Circe and Odysseus' son is Telegonus. And Penelope, his first wife, and Odysseus, their son, is Telemachus. So they weren't super original. They were almost the same name. But long story short, Telegonus, Circe's son, gets older, goes looks for his dad, shows up, kills an old man to take, what he had. The old man he killed was his father, was Odysseus.
Oh.
And then Telegonus ends up marrying Penelope. So marrying his dad's first wife. But then, are you ready?
I'm ready.
Penelope, Telemachus, and Telegonus go back to Circe's island to bury Odysseus, okay? They get there, and Telemachus marries Circe. So the two sons of Odysseus marry their stepmother.
That's not weird.
Is that not fucking weird as shit, though? I was
It
like,
is weird.
right, righteous. Like, what a family.
And I thought the Bible was fucked up.
Girl, you thought. Yeah. Isn't that funny, though? I think it's so fucking funny. Like, what a weird little family you had.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So I do have a book-related question for you. Do you remember what the first book was that you read that made you really want to just really read and really love reading?
Oh. That's really hard.
Well, for me, it's not hard.
Okay.
Because I was a kid who was read to every night.
Mm-hmm.
And
Same.
reading was a big part of my life.
Mm-hmm.
But I did not really graduate from like kids' books to novels and stuff until I was much older. Because I don't know, I think that I just didn't get into it, or I'd be like bored.
Right.
And so I was like, I don't want to read this whole book. Or it would look daunting to me. I would literally pick up a book and be like, oh, that's a lot.
Yeah, right.
And so it wasn't until I was in high school and I read To Kill a Mockingbird. And I had to read it. And when I was in high school, everyone had to read To Kill a Mockingbird at some point.
Same, when I was
in
in high
some
school,
class.
too.
And it wasn't always the same class, but in some class, you had to read To Kill a Mockingbird. And I know it wasn't one of your favorites, but I loved it so much. And it was the first book that I read where I was like, oh, I can see these people. I see where they live. I see, it's like I would actually visualize, because when she was talking about walking down the street and, some old lady yelling at her from her front porch. And I don't know if I visualized it as just kind of where I live, because I lived in the country, probably, but I could see it.
Yeah.
And it was the first one I was like, this feels like a movie to me.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, I get it now. And I read that book, loved it, and I have read it since probably 4 or 5 times, and every time I pick up a little something different, or I pick up like, oh, this is just a metaphor for this, and this is that, it's like, and so that for me was the book that just made me go, oh, reading is fundamental. And then I started reading other books around the same, because I was in a class where I had to read, I don't remember how many books. I had to read a bunch of books, and The Outsiders.
I love that, though.
And then that was then and This Is Now, which is like the later book of The Outsiders by S.E. Hinton. I was like just completely enthralled with those books. We also read a book, and I didn't look it up who wrote this. It was a weird book. Actually, I can maybe look it up while I speak. Probably not, because I can't really do two things at once. The book was called The Pig Man.
Oh.
And it was about this man. He was called the Pig Man because he collected glass pigs.
Okay.
And this group of kids befriended him and then basically betrayed him by trashing his house when they said that they would, house it for him.
Sure.
And broke his heart and whatever. But I remember just that whole group of books made me just want to read and read and read and read. And so I want to say I was a freshman.
Okay.
So about 14 is where I started really loving books.
Okay. I think that for me, I know what mine is now, but going back to Kill a Mockingbird, I read it freshman year and did not like it. And then I transferred high schools and had to read it for a different class. And I think for whatever reason, because I'd read it before, I was able to just like not have to, I already had all the knowledge of it. So I did enjoy it. I do like it. As an adult, I see the importance of it. I see that it is a good book. But when I was younger, I was like, nope, not my thing. But the book, it's the series of Harry Potter, because that came out in 1998, girl. I would have been 9 years old.
Yeah.
So, and Grandma read those to us when I was young, because she would read them. We all wanted to read it. So she'd read it to like me and my sisters and cousins at the same time. And then I started reading it from there. But it was probably Harry Potter, to be honest.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Well, and I know we've talked about this on here before, because when you started reading Harry Potter, everybody in the world was reading Harry Potter, and it was Harry Potter mania, and it would be like, when a new book would come out, people would be lined up down the street to buy the books and the whole thing. And I was just like, oh, I can't be bothered. What is this nonsense? I'm not going to be one of the sheep who, does. And you kept telling me I needed to read the book.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, I'll get to it.
I guess.
And so it wasn't until the first movie came out, and then I saw the first movie, and I was like, oh my God, I need to read the books. Because I know if I like a movie, if I really like a movie, I'm going to love the book.
Yeah.
Because I always find the book is better. You know, whether it be because the book, if you made it into the truest form of itself into a movie, it would have to be like 10 hours long.
Sure.
And it would have so many details that the movie couldn't possibly have.
Be interesting, even.
Which is what I love, though, about a lot of the shows now.
Yeah.
Where it's like, we can make a 10-hour movie.
Yeah.
Because we'll make it into a 10-part show.
Yeah.
You know, and I love that. And I wish that they would do that with some of the books that I think The Wizard of Oz.
Would be so good.
You know, it's like, take each book, make each chapter 1 hour.
Yeah. Well, and those books aren't long either.
They're not, but they're so detailed. But so after I saw the first movie, I came to, over to see you, and I was like, I need to borrow the first Harry Potter.
Yeah.
And you actually, by that point, the first 3 were out.
Yeah.
And so I borrowed the first 3 from you and read them.
Gobble, gobble. Yep.
Yeah. And it was like, I couldn't get enough and couldn't read them fast enough. So when the 4th book came out, I bought it, of course, the day it came out.
Yep.
And that was the first one that was like super big.
Oh yeah, because it's the Goblet of Fire. It was huge. I was like, is this
huge.
the Bible?
It was like 50,000 pages.
Yeah.
I took it with me I bought it right before I was going to Las Vegas. And I was like, oh, I'll take it with me on the trip because that way I can read it in the airport and I can read it on the plane and I can, any downtime. I could hardly find myself time to do anything else.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, I'm going to read it by the pool. I'm going to read it at my hotel. And I read the entire book.
Yeah.
I think while I was in Las Vegas.
That's so funny.
Because it was so good.
Yeah, it's so good.
You
And
know?
that's, for me, the last books are my favorite. And that's the same with the movies, too. The last, 4 through 8. 8 are my favorite, for sure.
Well, because with each book,
we get older,
it becomes
and
older and darker. Yes.
Yeah. And so, yeah, Harry Potter was really number 1 for me. And I was 9. And I think here's the thing. In retrospect, I still like them because of nostalgia. I still like them because it's nostalgic. But, again, comparing the Harry Potter series to, Percy Jackson, I'm going to say Rick Riordan's a better writer. And I'm going to say he does a better job. I think Harry Potter is just kind of, I don't know. It's, I think if I had read it for the first time now, I probably wouldn't like it as much. You know what I mean? Even if I know anything about J.K. Rowling. It's just not as good as a YA.
Boo.
Boo, you fucking whore.
We hate her.
Hate her. But yeah, Harry Potter. But I mean, the same as you, with Grammy, I was read to all the time.
Yeah.
All the time. And from a young age, too, I was reading books, probably around the same time I was reading Harry Potter, maybe a little younger, is the first time I read, a Dean Koontz book.
Oh, okay.
Right? So I read the book Fun House, which scared the living fuck out of me. And I couldn't sleep with lights off for a long time. And the Oddkins, that big picture book that's also where the toys come alive. But, I've been reading those books since I was little, too. And, the series of Serendipity books that she still has.
Oh, right. Right.
But some of those are from when y'all were young.
Yes.
Because she kept them. And then they were still a thing, and we would buy them if we went to the beach and stopped at the little souvenir store or whatever.
Yeah.
So there was 30 of them. So, I mean, I was reading a lot, Here's a funny story. Are you ready? When I was in, what grade was I in? 3rd or 4th grade, we had to make little poetry books for someone.
Oh, okay.
And I made one for Grandma. But we got to, marble our own paper and bind it. It was a lot of fun. It was cute. And we had to write some poems, and we picked some poems. Girl, I'm, again, 8 years old, and the poems I picked were from Emily Dickinson and Edgar Allan Poe.
Sure, of course they were.
And Grandma still has that book, and if you read it, I was like, how did people read this and not realize that I was the most traumatized, depressed child?
Pretty damaged goods then.
Because even the fucking poem I write is you're in the desert, dry, 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 and then something about, die, die, die. Everyone just thought that was normal and regular for an 8-year-old to be I hate it.
I'm just going to go ahead and say no.
Nor.
Well, and the fact that an 8-year-old is reading Poe. I mean, really. First of all, what 8-year-old has heard of Edgar Allan Poe or Emily Dickinson?
Yeah.
And it's or would understand them.
Yeah.
Or would appreciate them. I mean, any of those things, you're that's not an 8-year-old thing.
No.
What 8-year-old is going to go, Oh, the Raven. Awesome.
Yeah, tubular.
You know, it's like, wait, is it a cute little bird story? No, it is not. No, it is not. The Telltale Heart. You know, it's like all the things. I didn't read Poe until I was in high school. And I probably didn't understand Poe really until even later than that. Because I was reading a lot of it going, what?
Yeah.
You know, because it is so dark.
It is,
and he was, you know, a pretty depressed dude.
Yeah.
But it would be about the same time I would read them, I would also watch, like, because there was a movie of The Telltale Heart.
Okay, yeah.
Or there were...
the Pendulum.
Yeah, The Pit and the Pendulum and all of those things. But when I was reading those guys, I was also reading stuff that I was like, what is this stuff? Because they had us reading, like, short stories like O. Henry.
Okay.
And that kind of stuff. But it was always like really deep and intense stuff. Yeah. I'm like, I'm 14. I'm not sure I really get all this. Because I was the Lisa Frank of humans then. I was like all rainbows and sunshine and shit.
And you're all,
although I was a depressed little kid, I was like, my life was like, I just want it to be all rainbows and butterflies and sunshine. And, you know.
There are times though I feel very nostalgic for like, I wish I could go back and just find the reading list for each year that I was in, like grade school and middle school, elementary school, whatever. Because I loved that. There's just something weirdly nostalgic to me about reading the books that were like, okay, we're all reading this book now as a class. For some reason. And some of them were good. Other times, they weren't.
I know that when I was in 5th grade.
Okay.
Yeah, 5th grade. Our teacher read books to us. Mm-hmm. That would, I think, be... I want to say it was like once a week he would read from a book.
Who was your teacher?
He was long gone.
Okay, I was like, was it Mr.
But I didn't have him until 7th grade.
Okay.
But he read to us like Charlotte's Web.
Yeah.
And Stuart Little, The Trumpet of the Swan, different, you know, whatever. And stories that I read, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory.
Sure, yeah.
What's funny about that to me is Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, I went back and read as an adult. Mm-hmm. And it is not, I mean, it's a children's book.
Sure.
But Roald Dahl was a twisted soul.
Yeah.
I mean, he wrote some pretty dark shit. Because I have the whole, like, not the whole, but I have a Roald Dahl collection that I bought for my children. And we read the entire collection. Mm-hmm. But there was some dark and twisted stuff in there that I'm all... That man, he was a pretty twisted dude.
Well, and I mean, and there's like problematic things within Charlie and the Chocolate Factory because they go and get the pygmies from Africa.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
The Oompa Loompas.
And all they do is survive on chocolate.
On cocoa beans.
Yeah, exactly. Which is, you know, there's some things that are slightly problematic.
Yes, when you read that as an adult, you're like, I know that for me, reading The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe as an adult... Mm-hmm. First of all, I didn't know that the entire series, all however many books it is, 6 books?
6 or 7,
it's all just an analogy for the fucking Bible.
Yes.
I didn't realize that. Until and then you get to the very end when they have finally made it through all the things and you're like, oh my god, they just fucking went to heaven. That's what we're leading to? Ugh.
Yeah, I know.
But there's also parts where I'm like, oh, this is very racist. Lovely. You know, because there are characters in there, and I know we've talked about this before, who were referred to as darkies. And I was like, oh God. Okay. And when I was reading it to my children, I said, I'm going to say this one time.
And that's it.
Because it's here, but I'm not going to say it for the rest of it. I will refer to them as something else. But this is how they were. And I actually said it to them so they would know.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is not an okay term ever.
No.
It wasn't okay then. It's not okay now.
Yeah.
But I want you to hear it so you know that you will never say it. And if you read it or whatever... But I was like, God almighty.
Do you know what's crazy is I knew from a young age that C.S. Lewis was a Christian. And I learned, when I learned that they were, again, like an analogy of the Bible or like of Christianity of sorts, I was like, no. And then so I stopped reading them because of that specifically. Yeah. But I found out in one of my last classes, the sociology of religion, that C.S. Lewis wasn't always a Christian. He was a hardcore atheist. And then had a religious, spiritual experience that was so powerful to him that he converted to, like, Lutheranism. Yeah. Crazy. I know.
A couple other books that I wanted to talk about. Yeah. So I'm jumping way, way ahead. So this one actually I was inspired because I saw that the movie Hello, God, It's Me, Margaret is out.
I've never read
Judy
Judy
Blume.
Blume. Never once read.
Everybody when I was in school was reading Judy Blume because it was the thing. Mostly girls. I don't think boys were at all interested in Judy Blume.
Okay.
And Hello, God, It's Me, Margaret, which was a really sweet book. But she wrote children's books, young adult books, or young, whatever it's called, young reader, young adult?
Young adult YA.
And then adult books. And I've read some from each category. And I was surprised that as her, she went from kid to young adult to adult, that it flowed very well. That it was like, oh, yeah, no, this is very much... Because one of her adult books I read was Wifey, and it's very adult. But Forever I read in school, and I remember it was one of those books that was being passed around because everyone was reading it because it was a little scandalous because it was one of the first YA books.
Yeah.
And I was like, Judy Blume. So, but read Judy Blume.
I've never read. I've heard obviously about Judy Blume, but
Yeah.
I've never once read. I didn't know what the whole hullabaloo was about.
So I also want to, one of my favorite authors now, I've read, I think all of her books, is Jen Lancaster. And I got her first book just because of the title, which was, and it wasn't her, but the first one I read, which was called Bitter is the New Black.
Okay.
Actually, no, that was her first book.
Okay.
It was the first one I read, though, I think was Such a Pretty Fat.
Okay.
And she is this plus size, smart ass, just kind of bitchy woman who talks about her life and how the rest of the world is stupid.
Yes.
So I was like, I love her.
Hell yeah.
I mean, she's politically conservative, I believe.
Yeah.
But I was like, all right, I'm not going to get into all that, but her writing is so funny. And two other people I just want to mention real quick because we are nearing the end.
Yeah.
Morgan Jerkins has written a couple books, but the first one I read was called This Will Be My Undoing.
Right. Yeah.
Love that book because it's just about her life and kind of racism and how it affected her directly.
Yeah.
And it's all her, this is how racism affected me.
Yeah.
Not this is me telling you how racism is for the world.
Sure.
This is how it specifically affected me.
Yeah.
And Phoebe Robinson,
right,
who's a hilarious comedian.
Yeah, she is.
Her first book was You Can't Touch My Hair, which, of course, black women have to say all the time. Her second book was Everything is Trash, But It's Okay, which she wrote right after Trump was put into office.
Okay, well.
Because everything was trash. And then her latest book, which I am in the middle of, is called Please Don't Sit on My Bed in Your Outside Clothes. And they're all of her books are essays.
Okay.
And they're just pieces of her life and things that, little stories that she tells. But she also is just fucking
She
hilarious.
is really
So if you get a chance to see her stand up and stuff.
Yeah, you should.
Do it.
The only other author, which is a lot of people's favorite author that I want to talk about, and I've read a lot of his books, is Stephen King. And I think maybe because he's a little bit crazy and a little bit problematic in some things, but also he's prolific.
Yeah, oh yeah.
And what I do love, because if you know me, the one thing about me, girl, is I love a crossover. If it is shows crossing over, characters, movies, books, video game, I don't care. I like a crossover. It gets my heart beating. I don't know why so much, but remember when the Flintstones and the Jetsons met?
Yeah.
As a child, I was like, you're fucking kidding me. And that's why all these Marvel movies that are Endgame or whatever, where all of this about it. But because I've read quite a few of Stephen King's books, and I've read The Stand twice. But as you read and you learn more about the universe of Stephen King, you get to see more and more and more of how it's all connected. And I'm shooketh by it, you know what I mean? Because Pennywise being this ancient cosmic being and isn't really just a clown person, right? Or Randall Flagg, who's the dark man. He just wears a lot of black clothing.
Right.
But he's the villain throughout the universe. He just has different names, but his initials are always RF. Really cute little Easter egg things that pop up in names and, Castle Rock in different places. It's really... So that, and I just think he's a good writer. I think his stuff is really good. But you can tell the times when he was on a cocaine binge, because, girl, I'm what the fuck is happening? Or he wrote 17 books at once.
Yeah. The first Stephen King book I read in high school was Carrie.
So good.
Which, so good.
So good.
So good. It was so well written. And then the movie I really enjoyed. And I didn't even mind the stuff they changed for the movie.
Sure.
Because I think to make it more dramatic, you had to kind of change a couple of things. But such a good.
I want you to know that, I know this is our last thing, but between movies and books, when there's like a book that they turn into a movie or whatever, it's usually the route it goes, right? A book to movie or book to TV. I'm okay if it's different. I don't care if it matches the story specifically. Is this movie good standalone? That's what I care about. But then there are people, you know, who bitch and complain because it's not the same. It's not identical. And that, to me,
it really can't be.
No, right? And I find that just to be irritating. I'm like, you can't expect to watch a movie and have it be a 400-page book. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I always think, like, if it can stand on its own, I'm about it, right? I don't care if it's different. Be different.
I think I only care if I like have literally just finished the book and I then go to the movie and it's all fresh, or if they change something so majorly that I'm like, come on.
Well, I'm gonna give 2 examples. Sorry.
Okay.
The Magicians, which is a show.
Yes.
I adore The Magicians. I own the series of books. It's a trilogy, and I also love the books. But the books are super whitewashed. The author, whatever the fuck, Lev Grossman. Everything is just he writes things from it's from a male perspective, obviously. Everyone's white. Like, it's all really boring and bland. Watching the show, it's so diverse. There's queer people, people of color, it's multi-ethnic. Right. It's really, and so I was like, the show's much better than the book.
Yeah.
And in a couple years ago, they released the renewal of The Stand, right? That had Alexander Skarsgård and all that. Well, Amber Heard is in it, and I fucking hate Amber Heard in general. I think she's a horrible actress and just a bad person. But whatever. But she plays a character named Nadine, and in The Stand, Nadine has, like, dark black hair. And there's a point to it, because she gets taken over by Randall Flagg, and she is, like, so shocked that her hair turns white. But Amber Heard's blonde, and they keep her blonde throughout the entire show, and then when, like, the whole thing happens where her hair turns white, it turns white. But I'm like, you couldn't have just, like, made her wear a wig. You know what I mean? She wears a wig. Right. She wears a red wig in Aquaman. Like, I don't understand why.
How does she keep it on under the water?
But yeah, so, like, things like that I'm like, that's an irritating change, and unnecessary. Yeah. But I'm not like, fuck the show. It was still so brilliant. But, you know, silly things like that. Like, it would have been better to see her go from, like, black hair to stark white. But whatever.
Sure.
But anyway, so books and stuff.
So read.
Yeah, so read, girl. Just read anything. And don't be embarrassed.
Speaking of reading, I'm going to do this real quick.
Oh my God.
Because
you're going to read me for Phil?
I'm going to read you right now.
Right.
You whore.
Also, people, just don't be embarrassed about what you want to read. You want to read, like, kids' books? Read them. You want to read YA? Read it. You want to read silly, goofy shit? Read it.
You know what I don't understand is the phrase guilty pleasure.
Yeah, I don't have any of that.
If I like it, I like it. I don't care.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Where'd it go?
Oh, my God.
Oh, no.
She's literally ruining everything, you guys.
Stop it.
She literally just ruined everything.
Well, I'm like,
what are you looking for?
Where is the rest of this email?
Oh,
so we got an email from our good friend Lori Lee.
Oh, yes.
And it just says, Dear Best and Annika, I just wanted to wish you both and individually Happy Mother's Day. Happy belated birthday. Happy sold out show day. That's me. Happy pomp and circumstance. That's you. With all the accoutrement day. And finally, happy she's back from California day.
Hey.
Although you both had a very trying weekend, it seems as though happy days are here again. Have a great week, Lori Lee.
I love that.
So, as always, thanks for listening, Lori Lee. We love you, and we're glad you're listening, and all of the things. And keep listening, keep writing in to,
please.
It would seem as though at gmail.com.
Yes.
And we're out of here.
Yeah. Okay. See you later. See you never. Bye.
It would seem as though.